right, I will call to order the October 18, 2023 Lower Saucon Township Council meeting. Mark, please call the roll.
Mr. Bononis?
I'm here.
Mr. Croce?
Here.
Ms. DeLeon?
Here.
Mr. Engels?
Here.
Ms. Yerger?
Here.
Everyone's here.
All right, please stand and pledge the flag.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, council did not meet in executive session this evening. There's no potential action on executive session issues. The public comment procedure is available outside the council room. Again, it's public comment on agenda items only, residents and taxpayers only, with a 3-minute time limit. We do not have any presentations, hearings, ordinances, or resolutions. We're now up to developer items. I'm sorry, I got to do public comment. Public comment on the agenda items. First up is Andrea Witchen. Andrea Witchen.
I'm commenting on item 5B, the incentive payment. This is the third year in a row that you have used American Rescue Plan money to provide $2,500 bonuses to township employees, except for 2021 when you voted to give police officers $500 more than everyone else, and last year when you voted to give part-time employees $1,250 instead. This year we're back to $2,500 for full-time employees. In 2021, the reasoning was that employees got $2,500 just for showing up in a difficult year. Okay, fine, it was a tough year, although not for Lower Saucon financially, and they kept the place running. Last year, the excuse was a little bit less clear. COVID had receded, most of us were back to work, we weren't getting bonuses just for showing up, but everyone full-time still got $2,500. And now this year, what's the excuse? This is basically terrible HR management because it's one size fits all. Everyone gets $2,500. So if you're making $50,000 a year, that's a 5% bonus. If you're making $100,000 a year, that's a 2.5% bonus. Oh, too bad. That's basically unfair. It's just like Lake Wobegon. Everyone's above average, and there's no differentiation. No acknowledgement of effort and quality of work, just whatever's easiest for the council to do. It also masks another question. When Peter Marshall left in August 2022, he recommended a market survey of administrative positions, which the council approved at $3,500. That report was due in early November, according to Mr. Hudson, and in fact, such a report was delivered on November 21st, 2022. But the council has never addressed the results of that report. Did it show we were paying our employees too much, too little? Did we need to make changes in salaries? It's now been almost a year since that report was submitted, and we've heard nothing. Are these bonuses just a way to paper over discrepancies? Hey, we're underpaying you by 16%, but here's $2,500 to make you happy. If bonuses are intended as retention incentives, they don't work the same way that bringing salaries in line with market rates do. They're undependable because they can't be counted on each year. If you really want to incentivize employees, do the work and make their salaries market competitive instead of papering them over with once-a-year handouts. And what happens when you run out of ARP money in 2026 and the employees are now farther and farther behind the market rates? Oh, too bad.
Okay, thank you. Next is Ms. Laura Ray. Ms. Laura Ray.
Hi, Laura Ray. I just had a couple quick comments. I just didn't get to read through real thoroughly on the development plan that's on the agenda for the Steel Club. We had seen it before at EAC, but it just seemed like there was an awful lot of waivers in there and not necessarily explaining if something else would be done instead of the item or we're just not doing these things. So it's a little unclear for some of the waivers. Hopefully they'll be discussed a bit. because we didn't have, I don't think we had the engineering comments when we saw the plan. And then also in the budget report itself, I went through that as well and noticed, same as last year, there's a number of comments that just stay in there from year to year that are out of date, that don't apply. I saw one that referred to, I'll use the EAC for example, that we voted to discontinue our website. Well, that happened several years ago that I stopped doing the website, but it's still in there as though that has anything to do with the budget. I also noticed in a number of places where the budget shows the current expense versus the prior year expense and then the difference column. So it might be, it increased $5,000, but if you go across the numbers, it doesn't, the math doesn't work out. So I don't know if it's being done in a spreadsheet and the formulas are bad, or if they're by hand being put in there and the numbers are wrong. So just wanted to point those things out.
Okay, thank you. Next is Victoria Optoff Cordero. Victoria Optoff Cordero. Okay. And next is Bob Blasco. Bob Blasco. Okay, thank you. All right, that concludes the agenda item speakers for tonight. We're now up to developer items. We have the Steel Club development. I believe there's some representatives here for that. If you'd come forward, please. All right, for all those who would be offering some comments, and if you just identify yourselves for the record, please.
Absolutely.
Turn the,
Press the
green.
Yeah, green is on.
Yep.
We good to go?
Yes.
Okay, very good. My name is Jim Preston. I am the attorney for the applicant.
I'm Tyler Freed. I work for Meese Engineering, and I'm the project engineer.
And I'm Dave Spurk, the applicant, representing the applicant of Steel Land, actually, precisely.
So, well, we're here this evening. We have received a tentative resolution, and we've looked at that. We have no issues with that. What's on the agenda is a preliminary plan approval. We have a copy of the engineer's review letter, which is a conditional approval. We've spent some time with that, and we don't have any issue with anything that's in there. And there doesn't seem to be much more that we need to do with that. So it doesn't seem that complicated. The point I'm trying to make is what we respectfully request is that we convert to a preliminary final approval if the board would indulge us in that. So really that's the reason we're here. Again, we have the draft resolution. We have no issue with the draft resolution.
All right, thank you. Brian, do you have anything to add? We do have your October 12th, 2023 letter.
Yeah, I just want to ask Jim a question. You mentioned preliminary and final. We did not review this as a final plan, so it's just based on a preliminary plan. So there may be final plan items that aren't in here. So that's
No, anywhere.
that's why it's phrased as preliminary plan approval.
Okay.
The last time for the last phase, we came, same thing, we sat down and it was reviewed as preliminary and we asked for it and received it at that time. So that's why we thought we would do it again.
You received final the last time.
Yeah, in one meeting, basically.
Yeah, that was for phase 2.
Yeah, phase 2, yeah.
So right now, if this is approved as a preliminary plan, you can come in with a final plan for each of the 2 areas, so you don't have to post security for all of them, which is why I thought you did this as a preliminary plan, so.
So what you're saying is if we start one of them, we have to post for both of them?
It's on one plan.
Preliminary plan approval.
You don't phase it, yeah.
Yeah, with a preliminary plan.
Yeah. I mean, I would think that would be if you have preliminary plan approval, then you can come in with a final and say, phase, well, I'll just use letters instead of numbers. Phase A, section A of phase 3 is this chunk, and you'll have to post security for that chunk. If you do it all at once, then you got to post security for the whole thing.
I understand. That's, all right, that makes a difference.
So does that amend what you're seeking tonight as opposed to seeking final? You're seeking preliminary?
Strike what Jim just said. yeah.
Fair enough. All right, so you're looking for preliminary. All right.
Part of it, anyway.
I understand.
Yeah.
All right.
No, right. I was not aware that we'd have to post security for both subdivisions, if you will. They're not technically subdivisions, but both areas. Where we would we're likely to go to Fairway Woods after phase 2 of what's now known as Ross Hill. We'll build out most of Ross Hill, go to Fairway Woods, and then from Fairway Woods go to the turn. That's likely what's going to happen. The other thing that we don't see, well, we don't have to necessarily, if we're coming in one more time for a final.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, right. But then that's it, yeah, then we're good.
Okay.
We're good.
All right, Mark, any questions?
No, not right now.
Sandy?
No.
I don't have any. Priscilla?
do. A while back, and maybe you can refresh my memory what year this was, you came before the council asking for a zoning change. You remember what year that was?
I think we started in 14, and 15 was most of the work that was done.
Where you were very concerned and you needed a zoning change to be able to do the type of housing that you wanted to do, and you needed council's blessing and the zoning hearing board's blessing and all that, and you got it. Okay, you also talked about preserving area for open space, for I can never say that word.
Perpetuity?
That's it.
In perpetuity.
In perpetuity, yeah. See, I can't say it. It's just this one thing I can't say. So anyway, I know the concept though. So it's supposed to come with easements and a covenant and all that stuff. Has that document been prepared yet?
No.
Yeah, no.
So what are we waiting for?
We need a description of the area that's being preserved to put in the document.
Well, see, that's what makes me nervous about looking at this plan tonight, because I know what you promised us back then, and I'm not seeing any of that. So tonight, or, you know, since Friday when we got our packet, and I open up and I'm looking at the engineering letter, and there's 23 waivers. I don't think in my lifetime here on council, we've ever had a plan before us with 23 waivers. And the waivers are, let's see, one of them is a waiver is requested from performing a natural resource protection tabulation for each lot. I mean, we care about the environment, at least I do up here, okay? And when I see waivers for this, it really raises a lot of flags and questions. And stormwater. There were residents here that packed this room that were concerned about downstream properties being affected by runoff. And, you know, prior to that, we had that, I don't remember what it was called, the flooding that went through Hellertown and just wiped out that one section. And that's what came from that creek. So I'm just looking at this Lehigh Valley Planning Commission letter, and they raise a lot of issues with the cul-de-sacs. Somebody want to address this Lehigh Valley Planning Commission?
I'm sorry?
Lehigh Valley Planning Commission, back in January of 2023. If not, I'll just read it out loud. There's concerns about transportation, the cul-de-sacs, and we do have another letter in here from just quickly looked at this. And I think it should be a routine that we always get these in our packets when there's a development, because, you know, I'm reading this at, when I got here. Make sure, this is from the police department, make sure there is sufficient and safe site distance. I know you were at a waiver to remove the site triangle objects.
No, there's no waiver from site distance.
Inside your development?
No.
Didn't I see that somewhere?
There's a comment about making sure that there's no trees or plantings within the clear site triangle, but we are not requesting a waiver from
Okay, I'm glad to hear that. I'm trying to read what the fire company said, to make sure that there is, let's see, this is from the police, sufficient and safe site distance at the proposed intersections of Armour Avenue and Reservoir Road, taking into consideration the traffic entering Reservoir Road from Panther Way. I don't know, have you seen the police department letter?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so
Those comments have been
you're doing
addressed.
all that?
Yep.
EAC had no environmental concerns. And, but getting back to the Lehigh Valley planning, is there gonna be rooms, like in the wintertime, like for a fire truck to turn around? Have you made it large enough? Because I know you've come up with your own little figures inside your little development, so.
No, they meet the sound limit.
Okay. Let me look at my question list here. Well, like I said, to start off, I do, what's that?
If I may,
Priscilla.
Priscilla, the Lehigh Valley Plan Commission was actually a good one. It was one of maybe the best one I've ever had in my 38 years of doing this business. But the cul-de-sacs is a typical one. You know, Lehigh Valley Plan Commission stipulates they just don't like cul-de-sacs. It was really the only thing we could do, and this was part of the zoning amendment that we did that we referred to, from 7, 8, 9 years ago. The environmental study per lot doesn't make a lot of sense. The buildings virtually cover most of the lots. They're very small lots, and that was a trade-off. We were preserving, I think it's somewhere around 100 acres in perpetuity. And then those lots are very small, and the townhouses just fit on those lots. So to do a study of the environmental, what is going to be on those lots from an environmental perspective.
So you don't even know how much land you're dedicating to us in that little agreement we had a couple of years ago then, right?
Yeah, I don't, because it's a percentage of the whole. And so I don't know right off the top of my head, but it's somewhere around 100 acres, which is substantial.
Yeah, well.
And then finally, you mentioned the creek, and the water came from the creek. We have 13 pipes coming from the Mountain View subdivision, I guess it's called, in Hellertown, that flow into our property, directly piped into the creek. That's really what causes that creek to swell. If you can imagine, it's a creek meandering through a grassy, wooded, 150 plus acres of a golf course. So we have almost no impervious surface on a percentage basis of the 280. We have the clubhouse, we have a driveway coming in, parking lots and that kind of thing, but relative to the entire acreage. And this is what we came to, and it was almost completely different council at that time, as you recall. We came saying, listen, the club is not doing well. There's a potential for other buyers coming in to cover the whole thing in houses. And this is quite frankly, one of the things that the council that I think you.
Carrot, I know what a carrot is.
It was one of the things, and I think was a good thing to try to preserve most of the acreage.
Okay, so if I look on, I guess this is Hanover's, mumbling about, because Hanover's letter, page 7, under stormwater. And it goes down to section 3. The following comments regarding emergency spillways and freeboards, I don't know what a freeboard is, shall be satisfactorily addressed. And it says a waiver is requested for the basin and spillway freeboard requirements and infiltration. Well, you're taking away stuff that's required by, in other words, we worked really hard when we set up these requirements for subdivision, for a development like this. And now you ask for 20-some waivers. I'm not happy about that.
So part of the freeboard waiver is that Dave has actually been kind enough to propose a basin up on Apple Street that's not required for this development. It actually controls off-site runoff. So we're very limited as to where we can put that basin, how big it can be because of the slope there. So we're actually controlling some of the existing off-site runoff, which is causing erosion of that stream and downstream damages. Dave's actually proposing a basin that's, Dave can speak.
Yeah,
Look,
I'm not I'm not in the habit of patting myself on the back, but there's a tremendous amount of water that comes off of Apple Street onto our property. It has taken down our fence. As more things get done uphill from the property, so we have,
What it's like to be a downhill
well,
property
yeah,
owner.
absolutely. And by the way, we don't want to send anything off of our property. We don't. And we're handling it. And we have, no, I don't remember the exact number because we have some that are basins, some that are rain gardens. And we've proposed some of the most, modern cutting edge ways to handle the infiltration, things like that. But this particular basin, we're not required to do. We don't have to do it, but we'd like to do it because it's really causing havoc on the property. And so we're building this basin, and what we're saying is we'll build the basin at our expense, and we'll handle the water that's coming off of Apple Street. But we'd like a waiver from doing some of the things that we don't think are necessary, all that necessary for that basin.
Yeah, the basin's designed to handle the water. It's just the additional, supplemental freeboard that would typically be required, as Brian could probably speak to also. We're just requesting that we'd have to make the basin an extra foot taller, and there's just not area to grade that in.
Mm-hmm.
Their calculations show that the basin will work. What they're asking for a waiver from is the extra safety factor that the ordinance has built in, since they are the recipient of the water if the safety factor doesn't work. So that's what they're asking for a waiver of.
You know what I think, Brian? Would you mind going over your letter and pointing out the waivers? Just, you don't have to talk about all of them, but things that are like important for stormwater and like carbon geology and issues like that. Would you mind doing that, please?
Brian, to be clear, we're not going to sit here and have you read all 11 pages of your letter, all right? Thank you.
I'll do.
I've already read it, and I appreciate your efforts in putting this together. I think other members on council have too.
I was prepared too.
Very briefly look at the stormwater waivers. In the conditions, they start with number 23. They're the section 137, so we just talked about number 23. Number 24, don't want to provide supplementary. Number 24, because the basins are in the middle of a golf course, they don't want to provide supplementary landscaping around the fence. 25, they want to put a fence around the Apple Street area and no fence around the internal basins, the other ones, because they're on the golf course. They're in the middle of the golf course. Number 26, the ordinance would require lots to be 100 feet away from a stormwater BMP, and they'd like to be within that 100-foot setback for those two lots. Number 27
was never amended.
Is
After we did this
like to put the Apple Street infiltration basin in Fairway Woods Rain Garden 1 to be within 50 feet of the road right away. They are actually, this is actually kind of backwards, because we don't want basins that discharge towards a road being too close to a road. These are basins that receive water from the road. So that's why they're closer.
this type,
28, they don't want to demonstrate overland conveyance because it is the golf course. And the last one then is, again, structures to be within 100 feet of the road right away. They're receiving water from the road as opposed to directing water to the road.
Okay, what about the traffic impact study? Has that been submitted to the township?
When we did the phase 2, we had a report, the fact that this particular housing does not cause peak hour trips. It applies to all of them.
The way that is in my letter, they do exceed the ordinance threshold for a traffic study. And unless council waives that, they will need to provide a traffic study to have official preliminary plan approval.
About that?
I respectfully disagree with Brian. If you consider them together, but they're about a mile apart from each other, they would. He's right. as we come in, maybe now, as we're phasing the phase, they're considerably, there's a considerable distance between, and therefore, if you look at them individually, they would not trigger the traffic study.
I don't know, I agree with Brian. All right, I know how I'm voting, so I'm not gonna waste any more time with questions.
Just for council's information, sorry, I just want to clear up one thing. The conservation easement on the golf course property, which we're waiting for the description for, was part of the Phase 2 approval, so they can't get their plans recorded until that's done.
Okay, and then what about the part, I read somewhere in here that a lot of this stuff is supposed to be noted on the plans as a covenant, like when you record it, that's a waiver too? So that what I'm worried about is somebody buying a lot there.
If it's in Brian's letter that it needs to be put on the plans, they've agreed to do what's in Brian's letter, so.
Unless they ask for a
Unless they
waiver,
ask for a
and I
waiver.
think they did.
Did you ask for a waiver from putting something on the plan?
Not that I'm
No.
aware of.
Okay,
Are you done?
I'm done.
Okay. I just have a handful of questions, Tom, if you don't mind. The issues of zoning were brought up here, and the issues of rezoning. You went through that entire process, went through all the legalese involved in that, had hired your attorneys, your engineers, and received those approvals from the township, correct?
That's correct.
So you went through the whole legal process to do that.
That's correct.
So there's no reason to relitigate that today. That's already been done and resolved, and we're moving on from that.
Well, no, and more to the point, we appreciate the township taking the steps that the township took to allow this project to happen. And the project is now happening, and it's happening strictly in accordance with the zoning that the township put in place. We're not trying to avoid or evade any promises or commitments that we made. As to the open space, your solicitor is correct. We can't pull this off, if that's what's being suggested, without that open space being recorded and being a part of the plan. One of the things that's really maybe not obvious here is that this is a golf course community. So, and while I understand that a lot of time was put into the Saldo, and I don't doubt that there's a lot of pride in the Saldo, at the time the Saldo was developed, the ordinance didn't have a golf course community. It wasn't there. There are certain things that are unique to a golf course community. So as you heard your engineer say, as he talked about the stormwater, he said, but this is a golf course. And again, the landscaping, but this is a golf course. So each of the individual lots probably don't need to have an environmental study done for each of the lots that go inside the golf course. So the reason you're going to see many of the waivers is because of the reality that this plan is developed under a zoning scheme that was not anticipated by the other ordinances that are now in play. So it would not be surprising, when I say it should not be surprising, that the Saldo needs some adjustment in order to fit this type of a community. But in closing, let me just say this. We stand by all our commitments. We stand by all the promises that we made. We're going to develop this product exactly as we said we would. Quite frankly, we don't have much of a choice. We have to go through the township. Your solicitor keeps an eye on us. Your engineer keeps an eye on us. And you all keep an eye on us. So we're not at liberty to do whatever we want. And nor are we have any intention of deviating from that.
All right, thank you. The question I have, there was something brought up about preservation, and it seemed to be some suggestion that you were reneging or not fulfilling your obligations or your agreements regarding preservation. That's not the case as far as I understand, correct?
That's absolutely not the case.
Now, the development itself is how many acres? The entire property?
280,
Approximately 280.
79.7 or something like that.
So let's say 280 acres, and you've agreed to preserve out of that 100 acres. So
Right.
more than a third of the property is going to be preserved in perpetuity, correct?
In perpetuity.
All right.
Yeah.
Now,
Percentage, right?
there was a comment that was made that, it's never been heard of giving this many waivers. Now, I have a recollection, maybe other people on council do as well. I remember giving waivers for a property right over here on Old Philadelphia Pike. It was, 3 acres or something like that, where we gave 30-some waivers on a 3 or 4 acre property. So what you're requesting here, when you consider the magnitude of your property, 280 acres, is really fairly inconsequential or small compared to what we did most recently over here on Old Philadelphia Pike.
That's correct.
All right. there were comments made about the site triangle. That has nothing to do with what we have here today. That's already been addressed through the whole process already, correct?
Correct.
It's a non-issue.
It will come up.
Okay, and another non-issue is the fire truck. I mean, there's alarms being raised about fire trucks getting around on the property. This is not an issue, because this has also been addressed in your development plans, right?
That's correct.
All right, so that, we're wasting our breath on that. So, let me ask you this. If you didn't do what you're doing here, preserving 100 acres, and developing this property in the way that you're developing it, you could develop this property, or you could have, before the zoning change, you could have developed this property as a matter of right and put single-family homes on the entirety of the property and developed all 280 acres subject to the township's land ordinances, you know, steep slopes, wooded lots, and things like that. But you could have developed this far greater, with a greater environmental impact than what you're proposing here, correct?
I'm going to answer that, and I'm going to say, yes, we could have, and I'll go even further and say, yes, absent this, it probably would have. I don't know if you recall back then, but the club was not in good financial health. And it was Dave came up with, this was his brainchild, to get this thing to continue to function, because it was not headed in this direction.
Right.
You are correct.
Even after the zoning amendment, we could have covered it in houses. We weren't bound to do the zoning amendment. We just had a right to do what we're doing.
Okay. And some of the things that you're proposing here, you're not even required to do. You're doing it because you want to improve the quality of the property and the effect that it has on the surrounding properties and the township, correct?
Correct.
Correct.
All right, well, I applaud you for that, thank you. All right, one other thing. This traffic study nonsense. The traffic study, you have separate, discrete communities on the property that you're building here.
Right.
Phase 1 is Ross Hill,
Yeah.
which is, although it's on the same property, the same roadways don't apply to Phase 1 as to Phase 2 as to Phase 3, correct?
Well, if you can imagine the 280 acres of a triangle, a rectangle like this.
Right.
Ross Hill is up, it's 280 acres. Ross Hill is up here, the turn is down here, and Fairy Woods is over here.
Right.
I don't know that.
But those roadways are not interconnected in any way that the traffic that would be generated from, hold on, let me just get the question out. Those properties are not interconnected in a way that the roadways that are receiving vehicles and having vehicles leave are interconnected in a way that the volume of phases 1, 2, and 3 are collectively put onto a single roadway, or the common roadways, correct? In other words, Ross Hill is serviced by roadways that are not servicing phase 2.
Separate and apart.
Right.
That's correct.
Okay.
They don't share the same road.
Right, so the traffic study, as you pointed out, should really look at it in each individual phase because of the lack of commonality.
Yeah, and again, Ryan's correct in his, reading the ordinance to the
I
letter.
understand that, but I'm talking from a practical standpoint. I'm a practical guy.
Standpoint, that's
I'm
right.
a practical guy, and I'm looking at this from a practical lens, and nothing against Brian, because he's, bound to look at it through the context of the ordinance.
He's a fairly decent guy, actually.
I agree with you. I agree. But, I mean, from a practical standpoint, the effect of that is different than what's actually taking place here in the field. And I just want to make an understanding of that. All right, that's all I have. Thank you very much.
I just have a quick question, too. So roughly, how much of this acreage is, besides the houses and the preservation, is going to be golf course? How big is the whole tract, I guess is what I'm saying? Do we have a rough idea?
Again, it's 280 acres. The golf course, I think, is probably somewhere around 150 to 180 acres, where the golfers play golf. There are many areas of steep slope, heavily wooded areas, ponds, creeks.
No, but what I meant, you are keeping a part of this.
Part of the land, the land in perpetuity is kind of a misnomer, because we also are required to have an 18-hole golf course.
I'm saying, this is what I'm trying to ask. So you have the preserved land, you have the land that's going to be houses put on it. So what's the acreage for the golf course?
Well,
Because you're gonna be letting, I mean, that's the whole point of a golf community, am I right?
The way the ordinance amendment was written in 15 or whenever it was that the golf course stays a golf course as part of the community. If the golf course ever ceases to function for any reason, no houses go on it. It stays as open space.
Okay,
That's the
so
way
that's
the
the way.
ordinance
So it's
was
roughly
written
100
back when we
acres.
did it, in
That's- I
order
just
to
wanted-
make sure that it stayed without having houses on it.
Yeah, the land in perpetuity is like a throw-in. It's not, you know, sort of belts and suspenders. You ever hear that term?
Right. But that's, I was trying to make sure, because we're talking golf course, and then we're talking houses, and we're talking, so I just wanted to make it really clear to everybody that, like I was gonna say, so you have 200 acres going into houses, and you have 100 acres that's gonna be the golf course, but it will stay undeveloped.
The yield that you see on these plans is the yield.
Right, okay.
It's not gonna be,
That's what I'm trying to make really
yes,
clear.
that's
Okay.
correct.
I think the houses take about 33 acres maybe.
Yeah, it's pretty minimal.
You know, so if you can imagine, now we have a clubhouse and a pool and that kind of stuff.
The other structures.
But the houses, the three combined, I think are about 33 acres, something like that.
And that's it, the rest of it is.
Okay, thank you. That's what I was trying to kind of make it clear.
Just so that it, also for the public who may not be willing to take the time to read some of this paperwork that we have, January 24, 2023, Bill Chazar, who's the fire marshal for Lower Saucon Township, authored a letter to Jim Young, Lower Saucon Township zoning officer. They had no major issues with Phase 3. We also have a memo from Chief Barnt. This is on January 30, 2023. He talks about some site distance, vertical striping and painting stop bars on the property, but no major issues. EAC, February 14, 2023. EAC had no environmental comments. We've got Planning Commission. This is on March 16, 2023. It passed 5-0 to recommend the council provide preliminary approval for Steel Club Phase 3 major subdivision. We have March 9, 2023 from Parks and Rec. Had no comment on it. And then you got the stuff from LVPC, January 27, 2023, because that's what they do. But, that's all I have, Tom, sorry.
Yeah, no, I've seen iterations of this plan since 2014 or 2015, being on EAC and planning. I've always been encouraging and in favor of it because it preserves most of the property as a golf course, swimming pool, restaurant, dining areas, dining venue for our residents that choose to avail themselves of it. And it's the only golf course, I believe, left in the township, completely, a complete 18 holes left in the township. Produces tax revenue, it's what we pay our police with, our staff, and paving roads, as well as fire services and EMS. That doesn't just magically happen, so, thank you for, putting this plan forward. And there was a real concern, this 280 acres could have been just houses. You could have put half-acre lots and just sold houses. It happened right up the road. The Lucas Valley, it was a country club at one time, it was a golf course, was open, I think, for about 50 or 60 years, maybe longer.
I think longer.
That's exactly what happened a couple of years ago. It was sold, and there's no longer a golf course there, and there are houses being built all over it. There'll be there's real concerns when there's houses. There's roads for the townships to maintain when that happens. If you would put, 400 or 500 homes on here, it would add tremendous number of children to the school district, and they would have, there's a cost to that. It's a cost to the community for that. So I think this is the best plan. It's in the interest of the township. So it keeps the property revenue generating property while preserving, while preserving a lot of the property. So thanks for putting this plan forward, and thanks for not putting houses over all 280 acres.
Thank you. I will say this, the houses, if we would have covered the golf course in houses, would have been likely starter homes, smaller homes with school-age kids. These houses are typically going to be empty nesters, retirees, that kind of thing. That's the type of members that we have there. We have about 10 houses with money in escrow. Now, we haven't broken ground yet on Ross Hill, and they range from 550 to 1.2 million. So this is a significant tax revenue coming in here to the township. And as a township resident, you know, I share concern of my fellow citizens.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, it's a good type of development. I think it'll be mostly people without children, although they'll still pay school taxes.
Right.
And the internal roads are going to be taken care of by the homeowners and Steel Club, right?
Right.
So it's also good the township doesn't have to maintain the roads like we would in a normal neighborhood, a normal township neighborhood like we do. For example, we paved two township neighborhoods in the past 2 years. But that wouldn't be required of the township. That'd be your responsibility or the homeowner's responsibility for plowing and paving the roads.
Correct.
Great. Thank you very much.
Tom, you bring up a good point about, you know, taxes magically happening. I received some junk mail that suggested that taxes just magically happen without having sources for them. I guess the magic in that is the homeowners of this township. So, you know, we appreciate your, you know, we appreciate your contributions to the Lower Saucon tax base and your efforts to preserve open space as well. So, unless there's other questions or comments from council, I'll make a motion to approve the preliminary subdivision land development plan subject to the conditions set forth in Hanover Engineering letter dated October 12, 2023.
And that's to grant the waivers that are in the motion as
Yeah,
well.
and to grant the waivers, yes.
I'll second that.
Mr. Benonis, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Croce?
Yes.
Ms. DeLeon?
No.
Mr. Ingles?
Yes.
Ms. Yerger?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yep. All right, next we have, all right, is anybody here for Comcast of Southeastern Pennsylvania franchise agreement? No?
I would table it and go.
Table it, if we consider it and just deal with it. Let's just deal with it.
I mean, I thought the guy from Comcast was coming. We can table it if people have questions, but the agreement, he made a presentation before. The agreement now dovetails with the presentation. Mark and I have reviewed it. They made changes that were requested. It's the standard 3% that's in your cable franchise ordinance.
Yeah, and as I recall, Link, 3% is the standard. If we as a township wanted to include a higher rate, we could mandate that, but that would be essentially a tax that we'd be placing upon those that are servicing this, correct?
We could go to 5%. That's the federally mandated max. If you did that, you'd have to change your ordinances, and it would be passed through to the people who receive the service.
I mean, I think we spent a lot of time with the folks that were here from Comcast previously. I had an understanding of what they were intending to do. I don't know if we have any questions about it, but I'm willing to make a motion to approve the proposed franchise agreement.
I'll second that.
Lincoln covers everything possible that they could include, right?
We have a motion in a second. You want to call the roll?
Covers, yeah, it covers a lot. I mean, the standard cable franchise, same thing we do with all the other cable companies.
Mr. Croce, how do you vote?
Yes.
Ms. DeLeon?
Yes.
Mr. Ingles?
Yes.
Ms. Yerger?
Yes.
Mr. Benonis?
Yes.
Motion passes.
And you may recall that we had a discussion previously. I talked about taking some of this revenue or all of this revenue and applying it toward library services. We were talking about creating a digital library for the future. So I think this is an important step toward that. All right. Next, we have authorization to advertise the 2024 proposed budget. Oh, did I miss one?
Resolution.
Oh, the resolution. I'm sorry. The October 4, 2023 council meeting, Tom Croce, council member, proposed providing 38 full-time township employees with a $2,500 end-of-year payment. The total amount of the payment is $102,267.50.
You have a resolution.
Yeah, I have a resolution, I know.
Yeah.
Tom, you want to talk about this anymore?
Just to point out that, you know, it is 5% for an employee making $50,000 and 2.5% for an employee making $100,000. But with the inflation, 3 or 4% this year, it was 8% last year. You know, that employee who's only making $50,000 is paying a greater portion of their salary towards high gas prices, high food prices, and all that. So I think it's appropriate that our employees get $2,500 each at the end of the year to help with inflation. Most of the contracts call for only a 3% raise. And I think, again, I'll reiterate that our greatest asset of the township is our employees. And we've had very little turnover because I think Mark Hudson and everybody's created a pretty nice, and all of his team has a pretty good work environment. And they're our most valuable asset, and I'd like to retain them and reward them for a year's hard work. And so I'll make a motion to adopt Resolution 62, 2023.
Yeah, Tom, I appreciate that. There was a comment by somebody in the audience about what's the excuse for doing this. And I think the excuse for this is Joe Biden's out of control inflation. You know, everybody is affected by inflation in a terrible way. And we have the benefit of having a quality workforce here. We have a stable workforce in the township. And, you know, the folks that we have here are valuable assets. And I think it's important for us to recognize them and to do what we can to preserve them. It's still a tight labor market. Inflation shows that. And, you know, the fact that we have experienced people who know how the township operates is important to us. So I think it's a proper way to recognize them. So I'll second that motion, Tom.
Our police, you know, agreed to a 5-year contract that calls for 3% raises, and inflation has been much higher than that since they've signed that. So, all right.
Right.
Thank you for second.
Ms. DeLeon, how do you vote?
I'm going to vote no.
Mr. Ingles, how do you vote?
Yes.
Ms. Yerger, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Benonis, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Croce?
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right. Next we have, I got ahead of myself earlier, authorization to advertise the 2024 proposed budget. So the 2024 proposed budget is being presented incorporating the changes and updates requested by council at the October 4, 2023 budget meeting. Kathy, do you have anything to add?
The items that on the general fund pages that are highlighted are what was changed based on the resolution you just passed for the 2023 budget. And the only items on the 2024 were the additional $25,000 to the library based on the offer that was made by council. And we included, we added $4,000 to highway. $4,000 to highway general fund, and that covers what was agreed in the Public Works contract for employees who do not have their CDL to be able to get their CDL and get reimbursed on an annual basis until they cover their costs, which is 3 years for the total cost of the what they paid out.
All right, so we have a balanced budget, correct?
Correct.
And we haven't raised taxes again, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
And Kathy, we're still gonna have the program in place to reimburse people for library cards if they want to get library cards.
If you wish to do that on top of that, that'll be, it
On
depends.
top of that, that would come out of it.
It would come out of that money if Hellertown Area Library doesn't.
Or any library. It doesn't have to be Hellertown Library. It could be any library.
Yeah.
Right. All right. Any questions from council? No? Then I will make a motion to advertise the 2024 proposed budget.
I'll second it.
Mr. Ingles, how do you vote?
Yes.
Ms. Yerger?
Yes.
Mr. Benonis?
Yes.
Mr. Croce?
Yes.
Ms. DeLeon?
No.
Motion passes.
All right. Next up is the proposed ordinance number 2023-08 for the highway occupancy permit. The township staff is proposing to update the highway occupancy permit ordinance to improve road restoration during construction projects. Or do you want to talk about
Yeah,
this?
so we wanted to bring this to you. This is just the beginning. Brian worked on this ordinance. So this would help when Comcast comes in. I'm just going to use them as an example as we just talked about them, or UGI or PP&L. When they come in and have to dig up a road and everybody cringes because you know you're going to get that 1.5 foot trench. So this would require them, depending on how big that trench is, to do like a 3-foot restoration or the whole lane. Depending on how bad it is, it could do the whole road. So it's requiring better restoration of our roadways once the utilities come through and punch holes in them. So we wanted to bring this to you, start the conversation, make sure everybody was on board with it, and we can work to fine tune it a little bit. Just wanted to start the conversation. And Brian, like I said, put it together so you may be able to speak a little bit more.
Yeah, your standards that were in your codes, I think date back to the 1960s, so it was time to bring them up.
Dirt roads. I think it's a great idea. I mean, I think everybody in the township has experienced those isolated patches that turn into potholes that then, you know, the patch goes away and you end up with something worse. So I think it's a good way to preserve, you know, the cost that we're putting into our roadways. So do we need a motion to move forward with it? Or?
Yeah, if council wants to move forward with it, you can make a motion to authorize preparation and advertise the final version.
All right, I'll make a motion to authorize preparation and advertise the final version of proposed ordinance 2023-08, the highway occupancy permit.
I'll second it.
Ms. Yerger, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Bononis?
Yes.
Mr. Carochi?
Yes.
Ms. DeLeon?
Yes.
Mr. Engels?
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, next up we have approval to purchase Town Hall Park playground equipment, authorization to purchase the playground equipment for Town Hall Park's upper playground, the amount of $263,402, which also includes installation. Mark?
So this is a grant that the township actually started before I got here. Kathy worked on it, so we're proposing the playground that you see on the screen here. I'm going to do the best to get the exact color scheme that we have here. This was from the playground manufacturer's catalog. It's currently on sale. This is a couple different directions. You see a lot of different play opportunities, slides, balance beams, climbing apparatus, all kinds of fun and exciting things for the children. But we're excited for this opportunity and to put this in here at Town Hall Park. It'll replace the current upper playground by the pavilion. The lower playground here, which is more of a tot lot below the pond, right off the parking lot of the township building. We do have another grant in to get some extra amenities there, which will replace that playground also, depending on how much the grant comes in for. We're looking to, as I said, this playground currently is on sale now through the fall. So if we order it now, we can get it for the spring and get it installed hopefully early next summer.
Okay, so this is in this year's budget then?
It'll be in next year's budget. It's a grant.
Oh, yeah, okay, so it wasn't half and half, it was the whole thing.
Yeah, I don't think we have to do a deposit.
This particular grant, we got a total of $264,000, which covered pretty much the entire amount of the projected cost of the development.
The playground and the installation.
The original grant application that was submitted was much smaller in scope than what we're presenting to you now. We just had the opportunity now that this playground is on sale, that the grant would cover a larger set.
Oh, great.
Well, I'd like to offer kudos in two respects. One is to get the grant money. It's more than $250,000 for a brand new park. And second, for being responsible with that and finding something on sale that's going to be a good value and work for the long run. So, you know, great job by Kathy to get the grant and staff to, you know, bring this together with no money out of pocket, no Lower Saucon Township tax money being paid for this.
That's great.
We're also hoping that if the other grant does come through from Northampton County, to provide you by the end of the year a quote for the other lot, so we can get them both done at the same time by the same manufacturer and get those projects done.
All right, let's hope so.
That's great.
All right, unless there's other questions or comments from council, I'll make a motion to authorize the purchase of the playground equipment for Town Hall Park's upper playground in the amount of $263,402, which also includes installation. And thankfully with the statewide local gaming grant, gaming share grant.
I'll second it.
Mr. Bononis, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Carochi?
Yes.
Ms. DeLeon?
Yes.
Mr. Engels?
Yes.
Ms. Yerger?
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, thank you. All right, speaking of grants, next is Resolution 63-2023, authorizing the submission of a grant application for the local share grant for the Reading Drive Trailhead. Mark?
Yeah, so we would like to submit a grant to the state local share grant program to install a full restroom, men's and women's room at the Reading Trailhead. The Saucon Valley Rail Trail is heavily used by many of our residents and many people coming into town or through town on the trail, which is a great asset of the community. So we're looking to install a restroom. It'll be a prefabricated concrete restroom. Come in on a tractor trailer, be placed. We are working with Hanover to determine the best way to do the waste, whether it be a holding tank or a full-fledged septic system. So we do have that to work out yet, but this grant would cover the cost of the building.
I think it's a great idea, Mark. A question that I have is, obviously, the rail trail is only open during daylight hours. Would this be locked up and closed by township staff or police during after hours, so there's no, criminal activity or anything else taking place in the bathroom?
We haven't discussed that, but we could figure out a way to do that.
Yeah, okay.
I have a question. Did you entertain the thought of doing a composting toilet like we have at Let's Franklin?
We did. We don't feel like we get a lot of good reviews of that, so.
Okay, just a lot of parks I go to. Oh,
So that
okay.
people could wash their hands and do that kind of stuff. There's water is available at the trailhead. So we have that opportunity to do a regular restroom that people are more used to, that if they don't
Yeah,
enjoy the woods.
hell yeah.
I think it's a good idea. I mean, I think it's a good idea. I think the whole length of the rail trail is about 13 miles. I don't think there's a restroom on it, at least not a township or municipal supplied.
Right, I think we need one.
Yeah, so I'll make a motion to, do we have to advertise this?
No, it's a resolution. Approve the resolution.
Our motion to approve the resolution 63-2023 to apply for the grant funding for a prefabricated restroom facility at Reading Drive Trailhead.
I'll second it.
Mr. Croce, how do you vote?
Yes.
Ms. DeLeon?
Yes.
Mr. Engel?
Yes.
Ms. Yerger?
Yes.
Mr. Bononis?
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, next up, authorization to sell police Inceptor sedan and 2024 Ford truck pickup bed on municipal bed. Township staff is requesting authorization to sell a 2013 Ford Taurus and a 2024 truck pickup bed. Pickup bed was removed to install a utility body. Both would be placed on municipal bid if approved. Mark?
Yeah, it's a police Interceptor Taurus model car that we don't use anymore, so we'd like to place that on municipal bid to get that off of the township property. And then the new pickup that we received that is having a utility body, it was ordered with a utility body. The way the trucks come in now, post-COVID, is they will not give you a truck without a bed. So you have to get the pickup truck with the pickup bed. They take the pickup bed off, and then they put the utility body on. So we're gonna sell it, and maybe if there's a wrecked one out there, they'll buy it, and they'll have a bright orange bed on a blue truck.
Sounds good to me, unless there's any questions or comments from council. I'll make a motion to authorize township staff to sell the 2013 Ford Taurus and the 2024 truck pickup bed on municipal bid.
I'll second it.
Ms. DeLeon, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Engel?
Yes.
Ms. Yerger?
Yes.
Mr. Bononis?
Yes.
Mr. Croce?
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, next up is appointing a volunteer as a representative from Lower Saucon Township to the Saucon Rail Trail Oversight Commission. Council will appoint a new representative from Lower Saucon Township to the Saucon Rail Trail Oversight Commission. The vacancy is due to the resignation of Rebecca Miller. Mark?
Yeah, you have several people that have put in applications. Frank Thomas is, I know he's come in, he's a user of the trail, so. Thompson, sorry. So I would recommend Frank.
Yeah, I know Frank from Parks and Rec. Frank was very active in Parks and Rec. I think it's a good person to have sort of as a liaison between the two. The Parks and Rec and the rail trail really are recreational resources that we have. Frank was also very instrumental in Logan Cade and advancing his Eagle Scout project. He's shown a commitment to the township, so I think he's a good recommendation, Mark. Thank you. Unless there's any questions from council, I'll make a motion to accept the township manager's recommendation and appoint Frank Thompson as Lower Saucon Township representative to the Saucon Rail Trail Oversight Commission.
I'll second that.
Mr. Ingles, how do you vote?
Yes.
Ms. Yerger?
Yes.
Mr. Bononis?
Yes.
Mr. Croce?
Yes.
Ms. DeLeo?
Yes.
Motion passes.
And just so everybody knows, if you want to go to a rail trail meeting, they're very open, they're very casual, and they're very friendly. So even though Frank will be the voting member, it's still a very casual committee. Everyone can talk and get along and everything else.
And how it's supposed to be?
Well, it is, and in that environment, it is, yes.
All right, next up we have discussion of taxpayer contributions and crossing guards.
At the last meeting, you guys asked about the crossing guards. So I had Kathy look into that, and we reviewed the bills that we've received, and the bills have gone down over the years, and they fluctuate. So you can see that the crossing guards, ebb and flow a little bit, depending on the hours. So we feel that everything is above board and we're being billed correctly for the crossing guards.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. I'm the one who brought this up at the last council meeting, because I had received some reports that crossing guards were not being supplied by Hellertown. And in fact, police officers were being tasked with staffing those positions that we were paying for. And, in light of what's happening in Hellertown with regard to their police chief and the resignation and the questions about, I think they termed it financial discrepancies, I want to make sure, I'm sorry, what was it, Tom?
Stealing money?
Maybe, yeah, I don't know what it was. But, there's a pattern of this. 2017, there was a council member charged with overbilling Dewey Fire Company for his work. He resigned from his council seat. 2016, Dewey Fire Company was in the spotlight when a longtime treasurer had admitted to stealing almost $400,000. Charged with the felony counts of theft. These financial issues that came to light just a few weeks ago with regard to, their police chief are troubling. The fact that we provide money to support joint initiatives, I think suggests that we should be paying attention to these things. Somebody there's signing the checks, and somebody's overseeing this, and I'm not, well, or somebody should be, I should say. I think it's important for us to be mindful of how we're treating taxpayer dollars to make sure others aren't misappropriating them. We certainly don't want to have the State Attorney General's office investigating us like they are over there. So I appreciate that. Any other comments from council about that?
Yeah, I think, the allegations, the borough says they're $2 million in debt, sure, that's operating budget, but unexpected expenses. You don't know what that is. The reason we have to be concerned about this is because, we do provide them money for, not just crossing guards, we provide them money for, other things as well, historically. And, what are unexpected expenses? $200 million short in operating budget. I'm sure Priscilla wants to bail them out, well, it's on taxpayer dollars, but hopefully not. But the allegations are more than just the 2016 Dewey Fire Company treasurer that does $400,000 to a gambling addiction. In 2017, a borough council member falsely billed the fire company for 2,810 hours or $38,000 on his time card. And then in 2019, a former employee was arrested and charged with stealing $700 on Christmas Day from the fire company social. And then wasn't there a police chief? Didn't the last police chief resign too for, what was that about? It was 2009. I wasn't in the township in 2009. Why did he resign?
I'm not sure, but I think there were some implications with the secretary as well, so I'm not sure what the details were. It was, the secretary, I believe, was suspended for a period of time from what I had read.
Well, the police chief reports to who, the mayor?
I believe so, yeah.
And the council president? I mean, who is, I just think we need to review, how do we know where this crossing guard money is going? I mean, they just tell us, right?
Kathy?
Yeah, we
They
get a,
tell us they're using it for crossing.
Yeah, we get a-
Whatever, were they audited?
we have a bill.
You have a bill.
We have a bill with the employee's name and the amount of hours and what intersection they had worked in, and,
Employees, a bill with the employee's number of hours and what? And the number of hours he worked it and what he
the
billed.
number of hours he worked in that quarter for, or that half a year.
So they had a borough council member and company administrator falsely billing the fire company for 2,810 hours or $38,000. That was in 2017. 2,810 hours. Took them a while to catch up with this guy or gal. I don't know who it was. So you feel confident. We're getting what we're paying for down
I feel confident in the crossing guards.
there. Okay. And the crossing guards.
Yes.
You're going to limit it to crossing guards.
That's what's on discussion tonight, and that's pretty much, I deal with their director of finance, and I have never had an issue with working with her.
The director of finance.
Their director of finance, yes.
Bang up job. Bang up job.
All right, does that conclude the discussion? I believe it does. All right. All right, let's move on. Miscellaneous business items. Approval of the August 30, 2023 council minutes. We have the minutes. Unless there are any comments or changes, I will make a motion to approve the August 30, 2023 council minutes without any corrections.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Sandy.
Ms. Yerger, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Benonis?
Yes.
Mr. Carosi?
Yes.
Ms. DeLeon?
Yes.
Mr. Engels?
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, we have the approval of the September 2023 council minutes. Unless anyone has any comments or changes, I will make a motion to.
Take a breath in between that. I have a question on page 18 of 22 in the minutes of September 20th. If you look under Mr. Carochi's report, he said as far as the tree, Priscilla was complaining that there were trees cut down. She complained to him, she complained to the township staff, so he bought me a tree. But when the words that I'm.
He meaning Tom.
Excuse me?
He meaning Tom?
Just a little tree.
He, being Tom,
Okay.
under his report, said as far as the tree, Priscilla was complaining that there were trees cut down. She complained to him, I'm assuming it's Tom, I'm only reading what's here. She complained to the township staff. Well, I never really, okay, let's take a step back. I'm a resident who had some timbering behind her house. I also had an application for a cell tower behind my house. So me as a resident was calling to the township asking for information. And I'm sorry that you took that as complaining, because I was not complaining to the staff. I was merely asking questions. So I would like those words deleted.
If I said those words, I don't want to.
And you're wrong.
Well,
The record will reflect tonight that you were wrong.
there's a recording of it, whatever
It
the
is,
recording
right.
says. I'm not saying, I'm saying whatever the recording says should be fine.
You were wrong.
And,
But there was a complaint to the Conservation District about your neighbor, right?
I'm sorry?
You did complain to the Northampton County Conservation, you said I'm sorry, so let me get the whole question out so you hear it. You did complain to the Northampton County Conservation District about your neighbor, correct?
In my opinion, it wasn't a complaint. I was calling the conservation office, asking a question about the status of their NOV letter.
To have them come out and investigate him?
I did not ask them to do that.
Oh, okay,
If they came out, they did that on their own as their job.
okay.
You call them out?
No, I don't live there. All right, is that the only requested change? Is that your only requested change? Okay.
glad we
All right,
gave the
well,
staff bonuses.
I don't hear a second on that. So with that said, I'll make a motion to approve the September 2023 council minutes without any corrections. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Mark.
Mr. Benonis, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Carosi?
Yes.
Ms. DeLeon?
No.
Mr. Engels?
Yes.
Ms. Yerger?
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, next we have approval of September 2023 financial reports. Kathy, unless you have anything to add? No? All right, then we have received the reports and reviewed them. I will make the motion to approve the September 2023 financial reports.
I'll second.
Mr. Carosi, how do you vote?
Yes.
Ms. DeLeon?
Yes.
Mr. Engels?
Yes.
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 Motion passes.
All right. Township manager report. Mark?
The Easton Road ball field, construction has begun, sorry. They got out their stormwater, silt sacks, and have removed the fencing, and the dugouts have come down. The Steel City paving project is mostly complete. They're gonna be back in the next week or two to backfill the areas that need backfilled with dirt and seed those areas. Heller Homestead, the widow's house, the windows are being worked on. They have several of the windows out, being ready to be rebuilt. They're working on getting the appropriate lumber to rebuild those windows. Photo of the day. We had a successful electronic recycling event this past weekend. We had very rainy weather. Some of us stood outside all day in the rain and traffic in, and not a raincoat any longer. It's not a dry coat any longer. It's it doesn't work so much. But it was a good event. We had a lot of people come out. Numbers were down. The company had several events over the area, and their numbers were down everywhere. As everyone knows, the last, I think, 3 Saturdays have pretty much been miserable. So people just aren't coming out. But we did good. We got a lot of electronics recycled, helped out a lot of people, and everybody was very happy, and the company was very excited to be in the building. They thought they were going to be in the rain the whole time, too. And then just a reminder that the Halloween parade is this Sunday. On their Facebook pages, I guess and this is only my second time, so it's the same route as it was last year. I guess sometimes they change the route, but they're using the same route as they did last year.
Can I ask you a question on one of your report items?
Yeah.
Would you be willing to do a little constant email, whatever that's called, and Facebook page to the Steel City residents, informing them of the progress of this paving project and you know what the next step is and when it should be finished, because that would be very helpful.
Yep, I'll get with Brian.
Okay, that'd be great. Thank you.
All right. Council reports. Mark?
Quick question, Mark. Ball field seems to have stalled over the last week or two. Any info on that?
I haven't heard anything. I don't know if Brian has.
No, they did their demolition and clearing, and they ordered their precast structures for the stormwater, which may start to come in tomorrow. So you'll start to see some more activity.
Okay, because it seems to have stalled the last week or two. Okay. Just that the weather will be in factor shortly, so.
Definitely.
All right. Sandy?
I have nothing right now, thank you.
I just have 2 items. With regard to the recycling event, I want to thank everybody's participation in that, both staff as well as members of the EAC. I attended, I dropped off some items. I think it's great to have the opportunity to do that. I especially want to thank Tom for being there, Sandy, and Spurk was represented as well.
Those are the 3 EAC.
Yeah, I don't think anybody else from EAC was there, but I thank you guys for your efforts in, directing traffic and helping to make that event go, very smoothly.
And Carol.
Oh, and Carol was there.
And
I'm sorry,
Carol.
Carol was there. I talked to Carol.
Organizing everybody.
Yep. Yeah, I was there, yes. Yeah, so, again, thanks to all the staff and members of EAC who participated in that. I thought it was a really nice event for the community. One other thing there was, just bringing to the public's attention, on October 11th, Northampton County President Judge Craig Daly issued an order to the Hellertown Area Library compelling it to release information related to some right-to-know requests that were made by public individuals. Apparently, Hal had refused to respond to those residents' requests for information regarding the library's finances. This has been an ongoing saga since council had requested information from the library some 2+ years ago. We have litigation involving the library, and that is ongoing because of OCL's failure to give us due process in kicking Lower Saucon Township residents out of that library. But what's interesting is that these right-to-know requests have been adjudicated by the Pennsylvania Office of Open Records, which found that the library is in fact a governmental entity subject to the control of the Hellertown Borough. And as a result of that, they are required to cooperate and comply with the open records laws, which they refuse to. So instead of accepting that decision from the Office of Open Records, these were some scholarly opinions that we received. These were like 9 or 13 pages long, each of them. They instead decided to appeal it to the Court of Common Pleas, where the matter is currently pending. And in that Court of Common Pleas matter, the parties had sought discovery, and rather than responding to the discovery, Hal refused to respond to the discovery, resulting in this motion to compel. So it's nice to see that Judge Daly is ordering them to respond to this, and I presume that if they fail to respond, they will be sanctioned and suffer the consequences of that. I find it interesting that they'd spend so much time and money on lawyers to fight some fairly straightforward requests, but that's what they choose to do. But I think it's important for the public to be aware of that information so that they know what's going on with the library that they may be supporting with their finances.
And the library director didn't turn over her emails or financial information before she left town.
Yeah, I'm not
She
aware.
did not leave town. Her husband got relocated. You make it sound like she just picked up her bags and left.
Did she turn over the financial documents and the emails before she left town? Is that what that judge is saying? She did not?
I don't know if it's specific to the library director, but I know it's specific to discovery requests, and I'm not sure about the scope of those requests, other than that they presumably seek financial information and other communications related to the library's operations and funding. So that's all I have for my council report. Priscilla?
I want to thank those who worked on the recycling project over the weekend, and that's all I have.
All right, Tom?
The landfill land use plan was presented to the public via a planning commission informational meeting. That's all I have.
All right. Just one other quick item. I just want to recognize that council has presented a balanced budget with no tax increase again. But a few years ago, Tom, you had brought this up, and I want to recognize you for doing this. And that was a suggestion to, move up the budget process so that there's greater transparency in the township's finances. And that is occurring now as a result of this. This budget is out before the election so that the residents can see exactly what monies are being allocated and how they're intending to be spent. Previously, the budget was handled after the election, where council had the cover of having been elected and another 2-year cycle until they were, or 4-year cycle until they're subject to re-election. So I want to thank you for doing that, because hopefully the residents will see the benefits of this now and for the future.
Yeah, and I think it was either 2017 or 18 or whatever, there was a doubling of a tax in the December meeting after election that I believe Priscilla was president of council at the time, and there was a doubling of a tax after an election. Instead of all tax increases or tax cuts, and all spending should be presented to the public, advertised to the public prior to election day. And that's what we're doing now, and that's what we've done for the past 3 years. Thank you, Jason, for recognizing that.
Thank you, Tom. Link, solicitor report.
I don't have anything tonight.
Oh, I'm sorry, the junior council. Rudra Nitya? None, okay. We're not going to talk about the homecoming results. Well, I hope the homecoming dance was enjoyable and everything good. All right, Link, no report. Brian, any report?
I don't have nothing further tonight.
Nothing further. All right, we're at public comment on non-agenda items. Our first citizen, again, this is residents and taxpayers only, 3-minute time limit. First is Dave Boulan. Dave Boulan.
Dave Boulan, 2023 Alice. Yes, my address is published. A couple of things I'd like to ask the council to do, and they're favorable things, at least I think so. One of the past meetings, near the end of the meeting, I think we've been meeting for about 2.5 hours. The bottom line is one of the council people spent an additional, I don't know, 20 minutes talking about some item, which actually consumed 15% of the total meeting. And what I'd like to say, and this was during the report of each council member, okay? And I went back and I looked because I was a little miffed because I had things to do that night and had to wait until this diatribe went on for quite a while. So I'd ask if we're going to be required to keep our discussions under 3 minutes, I'd ask that the pertinent information that the council wants to give the taxpayers be short and sweet and not 50 view graphs of 70 lines each, which you can't read, and by the time you get done, you don't know what was going on. So that's a request. All right. Also wanted to say that I was a little miffed, as you probably know, and I do apologize to everybody here. The council president, I know I should be addressing him, but I got up and I walked out, and the reason being is that a particular person was granted the right to speak, even though they didn't sign up. Now, we have this document here that says, hey, you got to sign up, and et cetera, et cetera. And I would certainly, if a person were new to this council meeting and hadn't known that or whatever, I could understand it. But the person that did this, or the people that had done that, have been here many times. No excuses. So, they're transparent. Here we go. Hal, yeah, thank you. I look at the numbers. I see 10K spent this year nominally versus 150K. Yes, I also read one of the Saucon papers about the police chief, and I began to wonder what's going on there, okay? The landfill that we do here, not the landfill, but the recycling, people are fantastic. 70 people a day over there. You pull in, you get rid of it, and you pull out. As far as Judge Daly's ruling, if you know anything about this guy, he is sharp. He has done so much for kids that have drugs and all. I have a lot of respect for this man. So, no tax increase. Hey, I'm retired. I don't get 25 or 2,500, whatever. But I certainly know I don't have a family that I have to raise. So I commend all of the council for doing that. And I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bland. All right, next is Bruce Petrie. Bruce Petrie.
Bruce Petrie, Reddington Road. Mr. Bononis, at last month's meeting, you named the names and addresses of all the appellants in the lawsuit against the township against the landfill expansion, to the point where some of the residents felt threatened and called the Lower Saucon Township Police asking for additional patrols by their home. Well, you know what? One good turn deserves another. I think people ought to stop by you and Carochi's home and ask why you want to pollute the waterways and the air. Your address is 1082 Meadow Ridge Court. Carochi's is 2063 Pheasant Court, for those of you that want to go stop by their house. Second point, you went after my wife last month about how financially set she was because she took conservation easement money. And she had a $60,000 mortgage back in 1987. Speaking of which, your mortgage is only $53,000 that you took out in 2011. Yeah, you're not the only one that has access to public records, my friend, okay? So she's the hardest working person I've ever met. And no one ever told you our house was built in 1775, it's 245 years old. We couldn't even live in it for 2 years because we had to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to repair it. Where's that? No, silent, like, oh yeah, we took this conservation easement money and you had a $60,000 mortgage. You know what this sounds like? It sounds like communism, where the state wants to control its citizens' wealth and property. You know what? You and Mr. Croak are nothing more than Karl Marx communists dressed in Republican clothing. I really think that. And you know what? Since you guys want to return all the money to the township, why don't you take out home equity loans, since you only have a $53,000 mortgage and your home is valued at over $700,000, and Mr. Croce lives in the mansion, 5,200 square feet. He's got a $350,000 mortgage, but his home's worth over $1 million. So combined, you got $1.3 million at your disposal to donate. So why don't you do that? Point number 4, Billy Croce. What?
It's Tom.
His name's not Billy?
No, it's Tom.
I didn't think it was Billy.
I don't know.
You made a comment about oh, this sounds like, not in my backyard. Well, you know what? That kind of argument is short-sighted and plain pre-Cambrian idiotry. Why? Because everyone knows gravity pushes everything downhill. And the landfill expansion is located on a 30-degree slope. It goes right into the Bull Run waterway, which will run into the Lehigh and Delaware rivers. Okay? So that's why St. Luke's Network and others have joined our lawsuit on our side, arguing against this landfill expansion. Mr. Manonis made a comment, like, oh, where are we supposed to put the trash? Well, number one, the trash isn't from even our state or even locality, and that's not our job, that's your job.
All right, Mr. Petrie, your 3 minutes are up, you could wrap up your comments.
Clarification, how much money did you receive to preserve your land?
I'm sorry?
How much money did you receive to preserve your land?
$495,000 with 164 acres. It was $3,000 an acre, okay? The check was less than $400,000. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Oh, God forbid, communists, comment again. We don't live in a free society. You're like, oh, we're not supposed to make money. Here we go again. You go take out a home equity loan. Give it away.
All right, thank you, Mr. Petrie. Next is Victoria Optoff-Cordero. Victoria Optoff-Cordero. Okay.
Have a nice evening.
You're a piece of work.
All right, next is Miss Laura Ray. Miss Laura Ray.
There's another one that took the taxpayer dollars to preserve your land.
Yes, again, taxpayer dollars. Our open space fund was specifically designed to preserve open space, and you are always insulting people that participated in the program.
Sandy, did you take mine?
Okay, you know what? We had 15 years of referendum to have that tax money to preserve open space. Your comments are so far out of line. I also want to bring up again about the streaming of meetings. Here we are with this system, and only meetings that are streamed are the council meetings, and all the other meetings that occur in here are not, because the transparency that you say exists does not exist. You are embarrassed. You should be embarrassed how the things that go on the other boards. I also want to emphasize that there should be a third-party conservation agency added to any of the conservation easements that are placed on properties in the township. So looking forward, we want to see that happen on the area that was mentioned earlier tonight. And also, as far as I know, there was never a third party identified to be the holder on the so-called conservation easements on the landfill areas that they keep advertising and you keep saying are permanently preserved. They are not. I've not heard of any third party on those, nor will there probably ever will be, because it's not land that anybody would conserve. So it's a hoax, it's false advertising to keep stating that any land from that landfill is permanently preserved.
Thank you. Lynn, could we just get clarification on the status of the third-party easements?
I think Mark Hudson has been talking with potential third-party candidates. We're having a little bit of a difficult time finding one, so we're still working on it.
And Mark, what's the reason why you're having difficulty finding a third-party beneficiary for those easements?
Everybody wants money.
They all want money.
Not only that, but they don't want to hold them anymore. They want to be the primary holders, most of the. No.
All right.
They don't want to be a third-party holder.
Do efforts continue to try to identify an appropriate third-party beneficiary for those conservation easements?
Yes.
Okay, so that issue is still ongoing.
Can I also point out that for anybody who's read those new easement documents, the easement can't be lifted without court approval in the future, which is what some of the other ones in the past never had.
Okay, thank you.
Priscilla.
All right, next is Bob Blasco. Bob Blasco.
Bob Blasco, Lower Saucon Township. Many think Jesus said that money is the root of all evil. He did not. He said the love of money is the root of all evil. It has also been said that power tends to corrupt, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. On May 16th, 2 employees of a company contracted to clear land for the landfill committed criminal mischief for the stealing of a dump sign on our property. We had signs up, dump the dump. Why were they stealing our sign? Were they looking to impress their employers? The landfill? Isn't that reflective of the love of money? By working for the landfill, did they feel empowered by the clout, the money, the power that the landfill wields and uses to influence? Did power indeed influence them to be corrupt also? Many more signs have been stolen, but not everyone has cameras set up to capture such activity. The police either could not or would not release the names of the culprits to me. However, through other legal means, that information has been given to me. They both pled guilty. They both paid fines. My guess is they didn't want it to be publicized. I'm not going to do that right now anyway. And I'm not, because these men were blue-collar workers, which I was all my life. I don't know what influenced them that they would do such a thing. It wasn't just that they were riding down the road one day and said, huh, that looks like a neat sign, let's steal them. Answer the questions to the best of your ability.
Okay, thank you. I think that concludes the non-agenda items for the evening. I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll say.
DeLeon? Yes. Mr. Engel?
Yes.
Ms. Schroeder?
Yes.
Mr. Benonis?
Yes.
Mr. Croce?
Yes.
Meeting adjourned. Have a nice night.
Thank you, everyone. You two more.